I left work early that day. Not for any big reason, just thought I'd bring home dinner and maybe lighten the mood. Things had been tense between us lately, but I chalked it up to her stress, my deadlines, life. I wanted to believe that. The sky was that pale Texas blue, a little cloudy, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or not. I turned down the usual road, but something nudged me. Maybe that comment from Steve at work. "You trust too easily, man." It came out of nowhere earlier, over coffee. He didn't mean anything by it. I laughed it off. Still, I found myself veering left, passing the little cafe near our neighborhood. And there it was, her car, parked right in front. She told me she'd be with her sister today, all the way across town, not grabbing coffee 5 minutes from home. My hand froze on the wheel. I pulled over slowly across the street, engine running, hands suddenly colder than the air outside. Through the big front window, I saw her, my wife, sitting across from a man I didn't know. She was leaning in, smiling, no, laughing, and her hand. It brushed his wrist like it belonged there. I didn't breathe. My throat tightened, but I still tried to rationalize it. "Maybe it's an old friend," I whispered. "Maybe he said something funny. Maybe it's innocent." But my gut knew better. I pulled out my phone, hand trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I wanted to capture the moment, to have something solid, something real, and then she looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. It was like watching someone rip off a mask and realize they were being watched. Her smile vanished. Her hand snapped back. Her skin turned pale like she'd seen a ghost. She said something too quick to read lips, and the man turned to look at me. He squinted at the window, confused, and mouthed, "Who is that?" She didn't answer, didn't move, didn't run out smiling like she had something to explain, just sat there, frozen. That silence, that hesitation, it was louder than any confession. I stepped back into the car. The keys were still in the ignition. The moment I pulled away, my phone buzzed. A text. Not from her, from her sister. "Why didn't you come in and say hi? I heard you were near." My stomach dropped. She didn't know. Her sister didn't know. That meant my wife lied. Again. It wasn't just some lazy white lie. It was strategic, calculated, a lie with a smile on its face. The ache in my chest wasn't new, but this time it had a name. I drove without aim. Took back roads I hadn't seen in years. My thoughts raced, bumping into each other. Was I overreacting? Was I just tired? But the flashbacks started playing. Missed calls, her slipping out for runs after dinner, her sudden need for space, locked phones. I remembered one night when I walked in on her deleting messages. She said it was spam. I believed her. I wanted to. I didn't want to be the husband who snooped. "You're too good for your own good," my dad once told me. "The ones who hide nothing are often the ones hiding the most." I didn't listen. I pulled into a gas station. Didn't even get out. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the flickering light above the store sign. 1 hour passed, maybe 2. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just existed. It was a strange calm, like the silence after a storm, when the destruction hasn't sunk in yet. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I sat in the silence and made a decision. I needed to know the truth. All of it. No more assumptions, no more excuses. I downloaded a voice recorder app. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but something told me this was just the beginning. My fingers hovered over the home screen as I whispered, "This ends now." But it ends my way. And just like that, something shifted inside me. She thought she was getting away with it, but she had no idea who I was when I was done being lied to. The drive home felt longer than it should have. The roads hadn't changed, but everything else had. Every stoplight dragged. Every passing car blurred into the next. I wasn't even listening to the radio. I don't remember turning it off. The image of her sitting across from that man looped in my mind like a broken reel. I didn't know what to say, or if I should say anything at all. Confronting her meant hearing lies I already knew were coming. But silence. Silence was its own kind of poison. When I turned into the driveway, her car was already there. Of course it was. She beat me home. The house lit up like a stage, every light on, as if the brightness could hide something. I sat in the car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, just breathing, reminding myself, don't lose it, not yet. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen, glass of wine in hand like nothing had happened. "Rough day?" she asked, like she cared, like her voice hadn't lied to me hours ago. I nodded, said nothing. My eyes flicked to her sweater. I caught a scent, faint, not mine, not ours, something sharper, unfamiliar, a man's cologne. She talked about groceries, a water bill, her sister starting a new garden project. I didn't respond, just sat at the table nodding, staring at her mouth move. She never looked directly at me. That told me more than anything. My phone buzzed. I reached over casually, expecting another calendar reminder, but the message wasn't from anyone I recognized. It read, "You deserve to know the truth. She's not who you think she is." No name, no number saved. Just that. I didn't react. I slipped the phone into my pocket, nodding as she rambled on about organic eggs and a neighbor's dog. She didn't notice. That night, we went through the motions. She brushed her teeth. I took a long shower trying to wash off the doubt clinging to my skin. We got into bed like we had 100 times before. She turned over, back to me. Breathing slow, controlled, practiced. I stared at the ceiling. The shadows on the wall seemed to move, even though nothing else did. Her phone buzzed once. I looked at it. Didn't touch it. Not yet. I wasn't ready for what I might find. My mind wandered. Our wedding under the oaks in Brenham, the promises we made, the life we thought we were building. How did we end up here? Around midnight, I slipped out of bed, walked outside, barefoot on the cold porch. Down the street, parked by the curb, sat a car. Same make and model as the one I saw outside the cafe. Same dent above the back tire. It wasn't coincidence. I walked closer. Not too close. Close enough to read the plate. Memorized it. Entered it into my notes app. No idea what I'd do with it. But I'd do something. By morning, she was in the kitchen, making eggs, buttering toast, humming, like she hadn't shattered something the night before. I sat at the table, but couldn't eat. My appetite had left with my trust. "You're quiet lately," she said without looking up. I stared at her for a second too long, then smiled. Just thinking. I waited, then casually dropped it. "I passed by that cafe near Westheimer yesterday. Place looked busy." Her hand froze, mid-slice with the knife, just for a breath. "Oh, that place. Haven't been there in forever." Too quick, too rehearsed. I didn't push. I let the lie sit in the air between us. Thick, heavy. Before I left for work, I kissed her cheek. Not out of habit, not out of love, just to see what she'd do. She flinched. Driving out of the neighborhood, I pulled over and opened the text again. "You deserve to know the truth." I typed, "Who are you?" No reply. Not yet. I saved it anyway. I didn't go straight to work. I made a stop. Private investigator's office. A place I'd never imagined walking into. Man behind the desk. Ray. Mid-60s. Worn face. Sharp eyes. Looked like he'd seen it all. He leaned forward after I showed him the picture I took at the cafe. "If you're here," he said, "you already know the answer. You just need proof." I gave him the license plate. He nodded like it was routine. As I walked out, I felt something shift. I wasn't lost anymore. I wasn't just the husband in the dark. I was gathering light, one truth at a time. I showed up at her office early, telling myself it was for work. When I stepped into the lobby, the receptionist looked surprised. "She's not in yet." Her voice was calm, like she didn't know the war I carried inside me. I nodded as if that made sense. I walked past her office door, tried the handle, unlocked. My heart slammed inside my chest. I slipped inside, drawer by drawer, envelopes, folders, legal documents stamped and typed. And there, hidden under papers with her firm's logo, a deed in Leonard's name linked directly to her office address. I snapped photos. My pulse pounded so loud I wondered if anyone upstairs heard it. On her desk, a framed photo of her and Leonard, arms wrapped, smiling in bright light. No hint of me in that frame. I pressed my finger against the glass. That image felt like a lie carved into my life. At dinner, the kitchen smelled like grilled salmon, something she cooked often. I sat across from her, letting the silence stretch. "Had a late meeting?" I asked, voice neutral. She glanced up, steadying her expression. "Yes, just work." I slid that photo face down across the table. Her hand trembled, her eyes flickered. She didn't meet mine. I watched the moment she saw what she thought was hidden. The photo flipped slightly as she pulled away. On his wrist, that bracelet I gave her years ago, the one I thought represented trust. How clever she was to place it. She stormed from the table without a word, leaving me with the weight of betrayal. I followed her into the living room. She sat on the couch, silent. On the coffee table, scattered papers, my evidence laid bare. "Explain," I said quietly. She swallowed. "Those were business transfers, to protect our assets." I held up the deed. "When did protect mean erase me?" Her voice was calm. "Leonard financed it. I had no choice." That line cracked something inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I left, carrying my resolve like a torch in darkness. Inside my workshop, the quiet hummed around me. I rifled through old photo albums, our life before the cracks. I saw the two of us laughing, the house we moved into, the dreams we shared. Each picture now felt like a trap. I found a card she once sent me. "Forever always." The words lay heavy. They were lies. I called Ray. "Get me her firm's financial records." I paced the floor. My phone screen glowed with a message. "I'm onto something." Leonard's car passed outside my window. Late night, as always. I watched until it vanished. When the folder of photos, deeds, and documents lay before me, I didn't feel relief. I felt readiness. I whispered to myself, "I'm not quiet anymore." And I locked that moment in memory. I walked into the brunch as if nothing had changed. The house smelled like freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon toast. My siblings greeted me with tight smiles, the kind you hold when you don't know how much you can trust what's coming next. Mira handed me a plate and said softly, "You've been quiet lately." I forced a laugh and said maybe I had too much on my mind. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I waited until no one was looking and glanced at the screen. "Ray, found anomalies in her business accounts. You'll want this tonight." My heart pinched. I tucked the phone away, pretending I was just checking the time. Near the kitchen, Harlan appeared. He cornered me casually, but his eyes were sharp. "Why are you making trouble, brother?" he murmured. "People are talking. You're damaging the family name." His words were soft, but they carried the weight of judgment. I took a breath. "I'm not making trouble. I'm asking for clarity." He looked at me with that mix of disappointment and fear. "Your curiosity is dangerous." I didn't argue. I simply walked away. Back home, the silence struck me first. No car outside, no lights on. That's when I found it. An envelope slit under the front door. I pulled it in, peeled back the flap carefully. Portfolio of legal documents. A petition claiming our home was her investment alone. No shared claim for me. Hands trembling, I read the lines over and over. Then I saw it. The clause that let her evict me in 30 days unless I contested. 30 days. I looked around at everything we built. Family photos, the wall we painted together, the desk I built. All of it suddenly vulnerable. I called Ray. "She's escalating. Prepare me." He didn't hesitate. "I'll handle it." The next morning, I sat across from her attorney in his sleek office. He greeted me with the ease of someone used to expecting surrender. He said the filings were standard procedure. "Standard for us means betrayal," I countered. He smirked. "We're just clarifying ownership." I looked over at Velma, sitting composed, eyes unreadable. "Tell me this isn't you." She didn't flinch. I did what I had to protect myself. From the corner of my eye, I caught the attorney's shift. I pushed harder. "From me?" She met my gaze. "You were unstable. I had to act." I stood and collected my documents. "You don't get to rewrite history now." That evening, Mira called me. Her voice was quiet, hesitant. She'd asked me, "Come by." I drove the dark streets, headlights carving out pockets of light. She opened the door and greeted me like someone preparing for a confession. "I saw things," she said. She handed me a small flash drive. It was under her purse the other night. I didn't know what to do. I looked at her hard. "Thank you." She whispered, "Harlan said to tell you to stop poking his mess." I squeezed the drive. Truth isn't polite. When I got home, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Rows of transactions, contracts, transfers, papers that bore her name and Leonard's. I matched them against Ray's files. Perfect alignment. This was no longer about trust. This was war. I assembled the legal documents, the drive, and our old photo of us standing hand in hand. I left them on the kitchen counter with a note. I'm done waiting. Outside, the night was still. I slid into my car, headlights cutting through the dark. The glow of the house behind me looked different. No longer home, just a setting for the lies. I whispered under my breath, "You stole our life. Now I take back my voice." Then I drove off, ready for the fight waiting ahead. I woke early, before the sun had even fully cast its light. The house was silent, heavy, still. Nothing moved except my thoughts, replaying the data from the flash drive like a wound reopening. I called Ray, asked him to come over. He arrived with coffee in hand, and his eyes already focused. We sat at the kitchen table and spread everything out, photos, property deeds, old emails, new files. The evidence stretched across the surface like a map of betrayal. Ray leaned forward, adjusted his glasses. "Look here," he said, tapping a line on a document. "This signature. That's forged. That's not her handwriting." I felt something inside me shift, a spark of vindication, then heat rising in my chest. She used my trust to hide the truth. My phone buzzed. I braced myself before I looked. A court summons. She had taken legal steps, demanding I vacate the property. I stared at the letters, then met Ray's gaze. She's trying to rewrite history. I tightened my jaw. Not without a fight. By late morning, I was in her law office. The hall was cold, sterile. The receptionist watched me like I was a storm approaching. I handed over the folder of documents and demanded to see Velma's attorney immediately. They tried to delay. They asked to review. I pressed them. "You have 24 hours. That's when I spotted something in her file. A contract 10 years old bearing my name and what looked like my late mother's signature, but it didn't match her style. Someone had altered it behind her back. The attorney's face went pale. He suddenly knew I'd hit a nerve. I left that building under cameras and whispers. Phones raised. A woman passed with a child. Paused. Stared. Traffic slowed as I crossed the street. I looked up and saw Velma inside behind tinted glass, her expression unreadable. A man stepped forward to shield her. Someone murmured, "This is brutal." I pulled my phone out and recorded footage, proof she was still watching, still hiding behind a mask. I muttered under my breath, "Your Stonewall ends today." Home felt foreign. I locked the door behind me. Her shoes lay abandoned by the entrance like she expected to return. In our room, I opened her wardrobe, found a drawer behind sweaters, and saw the envelopes. Legal paperwork, letters from Leonard, deeds signed in her name. I laid them out piece by piece as though I was reconstructing who she had become. She appeared behind me, quiet. I didn't turn. "I had to protect us," she said, voice steady. I turned anyway. "By erasing me?" She didn't blink. I did what was necessary. The room crackled between us. Love turned battleground. I stepped back, collected the papers. "I'm leaving. On my terms." I walked out. The door shut behind me. Silence everywhere. In the afternoon, I drove to Ray's office again. He opened the door, handed me a thick folder. Court injunction, restraining orders, asset freeze. She can't move funds now. I accepted the folder. Relief mixed with wariness. I slipped the flash drive into my pocket. That hard proof, the one that could break everything for her, was with me. My phone buzzed. A message. Leonard's name. "Stop digging, or everything you love will vanish." My grip on the wheel tightened. Rage blurred the road ahead. I didn't reply. I arrived early at a quiet corner coffee shop, heart thumping like it knew it was about to break. Marie sat at a small table in back, arms folded, face set. She handed me a USB drive and slid it across between us. "This isn't just money laundering," she said quietly. "He's rewriting history." I plugged it into my phone. First audio file. Velma's voice, soft but urgent. "Make sure it gets transferred before he notices." My blood iced. Marie leaned forward. "There's more." She touched the drive. "Hotel video. Late nights." I pressed play on the video she gave me. Sure enough, there she was, walking from a lobby into Leonard's arms. My chest tightened. The betrayal was bigger than the numbers I'd already seen. I said nothing. I packed both the drive and recorded audio, hiding them like weapons. My eyes burned with purpose. By midday, I was storming into her office unannounced. The receptionist gasped. "I have urgent documents," I told her. She looked at me like I was breaking the rules. I asked for the private drawer. No answer. I turned on the speaker. The room froze as Velma's voice echoed. "Transfer before he notices. This has to happen now." Colleagues turned, phones lifted. She stammered. The denial felt hollow. Then her briefcase slid open. Papers spilled out into contracts moved under Leonard's name. It wasn't hers anymore. The room watched as she tried to reconstruct control. She said, "You don't understand the risk I took for us." I stayed calm. "Tell that to the truth." Word leaked fast. Within hours, I held my phone as headlines scrolled. Realtor accused of fraud scheme. Neighbors texted, colleagues called. The people I trusted looked at me sideways. Velma stormed into the lobby, flanked by lawyers, insisting innocence. I responded through my attorney's statement. "The public deserves honesty." She glared. I didn't flinch. That night, I pulled into our driveway and found it blocked. The ugly car from before sat there. My windows smashed, papers strewn across the hood. A note stared up at me. "You blinked, now wake up." I filed a police report even though I knew it was symbolic. I called Ray. "I want protection. Court hearing now." Echoing in my mind were the contracts tied to shell companies, the ones she'd hidden behind legal smoke and mirrors. I sat in my dark house, breath shallow, heart hardened. This was no longer about catching her. It was about stopping her. Next morning, I stepped into the courthouse before she showed. I held the USB, transcripts, contracts. In the courtroom, I sat quiet as the video played on screen. Her face flickered with shame and fear. I rose, voice steady. "Your Honor, I present the hidden truth she tried to bury." Silence fell. The gavel struck. By mid-morning, I stepped into the bank like I was carrying bricks in my chest. Ray had secured a subpoena, and I handed it to the branch manager with little ceremony. She didn't ask questions, just escorted me into a back room, past glass doors and guarded smiles. She placed 2 thick ledgers on the desk. "These accounts match the numbers flagged in your request." As I flipped through, the truth unraveled fast. Transfer after transfer, amounts I never authorized, flowing out to shell accounts under Leonard's name. The totals made my throat tighten. But then, a timestamp caught my eye. One entry logged while she told me she was in a board meeting. I stared at it, everything inside me burning cold. I didn't say much, just nodded, shut the folder, and walked out with it pressed against my chest. The betrayal wasn't emotional anymore. It was structural, financial, total. Driving across town, I barely noticed the lights or turns. My next stop was the mortgage office. At the front desk, I asked for transfer records tied to our home. The woman hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but I held up the subpoena. She disappeared for a while, then came back with a single sheet that changed everything. Our home, my home, was refinanced under a company owned by Leonard. I wasn't even the primary borrower anymore. I was listed as secondary. I stared at the signature on the document. It didn't look like Velma's, but the notary's stamp, that name I knew, lived just 2 blocks over. A man I'd used in a small claims case years ago. She hadn't just taken what was ours. She'd pulled people from my past to help erase me. Outside, I leaned against the car, eyes on the sky, trying to catch my breath. I didn't drive straight home. I went back to the courthouse. The hallway was busy with murmurs and moving bodies. I walked straight up to Velma's attorney, slapped the mortgage document on his desk. "I want a hearing, now." He tried to brush me off. I raised my voice. "You've taken everything, but you can't take the truth." People turned. A bailiff appeared with a new stack, Ray's audit logs and the refinance papers. Velma stood nearby, lips pressed thin. Her lawyer went pale. Clerks whispered. A judge paused mid-step. I didn't wait for permission. I left the papers where they were and walked to the gallery, sat, waited, let them squirm in their mess. By nightfall, I finally walked back into the house. It felt colder than I remembered. Lights off, curtains pulled. I paced like a man trapped in a box. In one hand, the bundle of documents that now defined my week. Ray's text came through. "File emergency injunction tonight. They're moving to dismiss. I sank into the couch, eyes darting between the folders and old photos on the shelf. My mom, my brother, me and Velma. You won't rewrite my story, I whispered. I meant it. Sleep didn't come. Just a stubborn silence. At first light, I stood outside the courthouse again. Same steps, same ache in my shoulders, different man. I had everything. Audio, papers, recordings. Then the door opened. Velma stepped out, 2 lawyers on her heels. Her face was worn, her mouth tight. We locked eyes, and this time I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, ready. I arrived at the courthouse long before the doors opened. The sky was pale, the building looming ahead. I held my folder tight, every document, every recording, every truth I refused to lose. As I walked, whispers followed me. That's him. What's going to happen? Reporters clustered near the entrance. I kept my gaze forward. Inside the hall across the way, I saw her, Velma. She sat composed, yet brittle, as though she had insulated herself from this moment. Our eyes met briefly. She looked away fast. In that instant, I reminded myself, this wasn't about love anymore. It was about justice. Then Mira appeared by my side. She leaned in, voice quiet but steady. You're doing the right thing. Those words cracked something inside me. Despair receded, replaced by a steadier pulse of resolve. The gavel struck. The judge called the court to order. Velma's attorney rose, calm and confident, denying every claim. He painted her actions as misunderstanding, not malice. My attorney stood next. He laid out the audit documents, the refinancing papers, and hit play. Velma's voice echoed, "Make sure it's transferred before he notices." The room's atmosphere shifted. The gallery murmured. Velma's face flushed. She caught herself mid-denial as the evidence pressed in. Witnesses were called. Raina testified how documents were passed quietly in safe hands. Then came the twist. The flash drive video showed Velma meeting Leonard outside my house at night. The courtroom gasped. Velma tried to say it was coincidence. Voices rose. She faltered. Under oath, Velma answered. She paused, then said, "I thought I was protecting us." The judge pressed, "Protecting by forging documents?" Her attorney started to intercede. I raised a hand to halt him. A family friend took the stand, unexpected. She spoke gently. She once overheard Velma regretting marrying a man so trusting. The betrayal turned personal. Gasps, tears, glances. The gallery watched her unravel. When court was adjourned, I returned home under gray skies. The house was wrong. Everything shifted. Photos turned face down, drawers open. I walked through, heart pounding. In our bedroom, a single note lay. "You were supposed to notice. You didn't." I pulled out my phone and took pictures, proof in case she tried to erase it all again. Despite the chaos, clarity settled. She wanted to wipe her tracks, but evidence remained. Night fell. I drove to a dark lot near our meeting spot. Ray waited, leaning against his car. He handed an envelope. "Leonard signed it," he said. Inside, an affidavit admitting collusion with her. Every deal, every shell company, every lie confessed. I looked down at the folder in my hands, audits, documents, that flash drive, all converging into one final case. I whispered, "This ends tonight." I turned to leave. My phone vibrated, a message from her. "You think you win. You don't." I didn't respond. I stepped into my car, breath even, resolve hard like steel. The courtroom was already filled when I arrived. Every seat taken, every whisper heavy with anticipation. Reporters adjusted their cameras. Old neighbors from the block, even some from church, filled the benches. I stood by my attorney, the folder firm in my hand. The documents inside, bank records, the audit, the recordings, felt like a lifetime of truth bound together. Velma sat at the defense table, eyes sharp but tired. Her hands clutched the edge of her chair. For years, I would have read that look as confidence. Today, it was fear. When the judge entered, everyone stood, then sat as the gavel struck. Velma's lawyer started first, smooth voice, steady tone, but hollow. Every word fell flat. My attorney followed, laying out the paper trail, the forged signatures, the shell companies, the wire transfers. One by one, the witnesses confirmed. The sound of truth was quieter than I expected. Just the shuffle of papers, the click of a pen, and the weight of silence. When the judge asked me to speak, I rose. My palms didn't shake. "Your Honor," I began, "I came here today not to destroy anyone. I came to show what really happened." I told them about the life we built, the trust that slowly dissolved into lies, and how I tried to fix it until there was nothing left to fix. Then I looked at Velma. "I didn't drive by to see a crime," I said, voice steady. "I drove by to see what had become of us." The air broke. You could feel it. Even the reporters stopped writing. The judge nodded slightly, then turned to deliver the verdict. When it came, the words cut through everything. All contracts voided. My ownership restored. Compensation ordered. I heard gasps from behind, like a wave breaking across the room. Velma's face turned pale, her shoulders collapsing. I didn't smile. Justice isn't joy, it's balance. As the noise swelled, I looked toward the gallery. Mira stood there, quiet but firm. She gave a small nod, and in that moment I felt something shift. Not victory, not pity, just release. People expected me to beg, to break. Instead, I stood. When the court adjourned, I walked out into the sunlight. For the first time in years, I didn't have to hide my face. Later that afternoon, I drove home. The right key, my key, clicked cleanly in the lock. I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of dust and old wood. The furniture was still there, but it all looked smaller somehow. I moved slowly from room to room, touching the edges of the life we once shared. On the mantel, I found a photograph, Velma and I on the beach years ago. The colors had faded, edges curling. I left it there but turned it upright. Some things you don't erase, you just stop bowing to them. In a drawer, I found the silver bracelet she'd worn the night everything fell apart. I held it for a while, then slipped it into my pocket. Not as a token, but as a reminder. Some symbols lose their beauty, but keep their meaning. I texted Ray. All transfers reversed. It's done. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A neighbor. "Saw you come home. Welcome back." I typed no reply, just whispered to myself, "I'm here now." The next morning, the sun came soft through the porch blinds. I sat outside with a cup of coffee, steam rising into the cool air. Across the street, life went on. People mowing lawns, kids waiting for the bus. Some nodded at me, others pretended not to see. That was fine. Time heals what proof can't. Ray stopped by before noon, holding a file. "Final settlement," he said. "Velma's stake transferred." I opened it, skimmed the pages, then closed it again. "It's not about vengeance," I said, placing it in a box. "It's about peace." He studied me for a second and smiled faintly. "You still care, don't you?" I nodded. "If she wants to get better, help her. Don't let her drown in this." He nodded once, slower this time. "Not many would say that," he murmured before leaving. By evening, I was alone again. The house was quiet, but not empty anymore. I sat in the living room, watching the soft flicker of the porch light through the curtains. In my hand was my old keychain, the one she gave me years ago, engraved with a small tag. "I'm worth it." I traced the letters with my thumb and whispered, "I always was." Through the window, I noticed a car parked down the street. Same one from before, only now empty. Maybe someone curious, maybe no one at all. It didn't matter anymore. The ghosts could watch. I wasn't hiding from them. The scars would stay, yes, they always do. But scars mean the wound closed, that life continued. I leaned back, feeling the chair cradle me like an old friend. The night was quiet, steady. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't surviving. I was living,